welcome. It's Chris from Christopher Holt Training. Welcome to this week's tutorial. The topic is lower back stretches. We're going to focus on 2 to avoid and 3 to start. Obviously, the aim of this tutorial is to understand stretches to avoid and start in order to reduce risk of lower back pain. There's not really any way of preventing and eliminating lower back pain, but there are ways and means that you can reduce your risk of lower back pain in the future. So we're going to do this essentially in 2 slides, and the first slide is the stretches to avoid, so the 2 stretches to avoid, and we're going to be talking about the risk factors that come along with those stretches. So in a sense, we're talking about why we want to avoid them, and then in slide 2 we're going to look at the 3 stretches to start doing, and we're going to talk about how those stretches reduce risk of lower back pain. Before we get into that, I just want to quickly mention my social media, which is Twitter at Christopher Holt, Facebook Christopher Holt Training, and Instagram Christopher Holt. If you want to come along there, please do like and follow. I'm sharing more information like this, blogs, videos, so on and so forth. So please do come along there. It'd be great to have you there. Alternatively, if you follow this link, it's in the description below this video. You can download the 2 best stretches and exercises for low back pain. So that's 2 stretches and 2 exercises that you can start doing to reduce your lower back pain. It also comes with 2 follow-up videos which help you get more from it. So you get the download straight away. That'll go straight to your inbox. You can then start doing those stretches and exercises straight away. After 5 days, once you get used to doing them, you'll be sent your first video, and it will just help you get a little bit more from the exercises because you'll have a bit more of an understanding of how to do them. I send you some more information 5 days later in a video which help you get more from them, and then the second video comes through another 5 days later, so in all 10 days later, and you'll be able to again sort of watch that video and gain more from the exercises that you'll be doing from the download. So what we'll do now is go straight on to slide number 1. The stretches that we're talking about with regards to the ones we want to avoid are hamstring stretches and spine stretches. So it's not necessarily one particular stretch, but groups of stretches. So hamstring stretches are the ones that cover the muscle down the back of the leg. So the hamstring muscle that covers the back of the leg. And then you've got the spinal erectors that basically go from the base of your lower back all the way up the side of the spine into the base of the neck. So those are the 2 types of groups of stretches that we're talking about. So as you can see here in this first picture with regards to the hamstring, it's bending forward. So bending forward and touching the toes. So those are the types of things that we want to be avoiding. Now, that would be, you would want to avoid in a standing position. It may relieve pain initially, but what will happen is it'll make your spine a little bit more sensitive to pain in the future. So the stretching of these muscles can make the spine more sensitive. Now that's due to a stretch reflex. Now we know the stretch reflex lasts for about roughly 20 to 30 minutes. So we're talking sort of 20 minutes to 30 minutes. So we know that the stretch reflex lasts that long. So that's something that we really want to be avoiding because of the longer term effect of it. So initially in that 20 to 30 minute gap, it will relieve the pain, but what it will tend to do after that is it will increase your incidences of or experiencing lower back pain, and it can increase the intensity because of the sensitivity that comes after the stretch reflex. What we then have is it's not necessarily the tightness of the spine and the hamstrings that cause the problem. It's more to do with the asymmetry. So when we are assessing, screening, testing with regards to the lower back, what we're really looking for is asymmetries left to right. So I would be looking at how flexible the hamstring is on the left as opposed to the right. If there's a major difference, then that's something that I would want to address, and the same would be for rotation of the spine. But what we also find is that tight hamstrings and back muscles tend to be a symptom of lower back pain, not a cause. So as we stretch out other areas of the body, and we're going to talk about that next, these muscles, so the hamstrings and the lower back muscles, they tend to relax and reduce anyway. So what that then tends for us to be able to do is not need to stretch the hamstrings and the spine, but stretch other areas of the body. So there's three basic reasons that we want to try and avoid these two stretches. One is that hamstrings and back muscles tend to be a symptom. I'll just quickly underline symptom of lower back pain, not a cause. It's the asymmetry and not the tightness that we're focusing on, and the stretching can make the spine more sensitive because we get this 30-minute window of when it tends to relax, and then in some ways it goes back to where it was previously. So when we're talking about stretches to avoid, we want to avoid the hamstrings down the back of the leg, and we want to avoid the spinal muscles or the spine stretches that stretch the erector spinae muscles that go up the either side of the spine. So what we're now going to talk about is, now we know which ones that we want to be avoiding, we want to now think about ones that we want to start doing. When it comes to lower back stretches that we want to start doing, we want to be focusing on the hip. So we're talking about the pelvis and the muscles around the pelvis rather than the muscles of the back of the leg and of the lower spine. The reason that we focus on this area is essentially because of these three, I guess, sort of fundamental reasons. Stiff hips transfer motion to the spine. So when we've got stiffness throughout the hip, so throughout the pelvis area, what it tends to do is, because the hips aren't moving, the spine moves more. This then adds to pressure within the spine. So what we then tend to find is that symptom of stiff back muscles. But instead, if we can make the hips more mobile, what that then does, that then allows the pressure to be taken away from the lower back. So it's keeping it within the hips rather than transferring it to the lower back. The second thing we need to do is to activate the hips. Because what we tend to find is back pain tends to inhibit the gluteal muscles. So if we can activate them, so not only stretch them, but as we are doing exercises, so again, if you go down to this link here, what you'll find are exercises that activate this area of the body. So what we're doing is we're activating the gluteal group muscles to be able to then again activate again to take the pressure away from the lower back. So the three stretches that we're focusing on is the psoas, which is number 1, which is in here. Then you've got the adductor, which is stretch number 2, which is here. And then you've got the gluteal group, which is here. So what we've got is the psoas, which joins from the lower back all the way through onto the front part of the hip. You've got the adductors that joins down the inside of the leg, so it goes from the pelvis down to the knee. And then the gluteal group, which go around the back here. So you've got these two stretches. Now, depending on the mobility of your hips will depend on the degree as to which you can do these stretches. But essentially, with regards to the psoas muscle, what we want to be doing is we want to be planting this knee into the floor, and then we want to be gravitating this knee forward whilst also maintaining an upright torso. Now what's happening here is we're then extending at the hip. So instead of the hip being straight down and then onto the back leg with a 90-degree turn, what we're starting to do is we're starting to come down in this position, and then we've got the knee and the foot. So it's looking more sort of, let's just say sort of 120 for argument's sake. So we're looking at this type of thing with the psoas stretch, because what that will do, that will extend the distance between the start of the psoas and the end of the psoas. The start being in the lower back and the end being at the top of the femur. When it comes to the adductor stretch, we have this knee planted. And then what we want to do is we want to gravitate this foot away from that knee. And what that's doing, That's creating distance. So what we might do is we might start with the knee and then a vertical thigh, and then your other leg comes out to the side. So that's how we might start. Now, in order to increase the stretch, if this doesn't, or if you don't feel a stretch in this position, what we would then do is we would then move this foot away from your knee here. So what that would create is it would come in and then down. So you've got one foot and one knee. And then obviously you've got your body coming off here. So again, we've got a greater angle through the pelvis. Again, this is lengthening this muscle that goes down through the inside of the leg there. And then finally, we've got the gluteal stretch. Now, this is the easier version of the stretch, and you can use anything from a side of a sofa or a bench or a chair or whatever it might be. But what you're looking to do is you're looking to put your knee and lower leg up on the bench. This is externally rotating the hip, which is causing this muscle to become longer. What we then do is we bend this knee, and we've got to make sure we bend the back knee, and then allow the knee to go as close to the floor as we feel comfortable. Now, throughout all of these stretches, what you should be able to see is I'm maintaining an appropriate position of the spine all the way through all of these. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to maintain position of the torso through stretches 1, 2, and 3. And then what we're aiming to do is we're aiming to move from the hip. Now what that's doing, that's stretching the hip and allowing the hips to do the movement, essentially. So we're taking the pressure away from the lower back. When we then go through a set of exercises, we activate the glute muscles and we activate the hip muscles. So that then again takes the pressure away from the lower back. The final thing to do is then to move the hips. Now essentially moving the hips or using brisk walking, and I want to use brisk walking rather than just to say walking, because when we brisk walk, we tend to maintain a more appropriate position of the torso, and we also tend to swing the legs and swing the arms more purposefully. Now that doesn't mean being out of control and walking too fast, but if we are just sort of slowly walking, we tend to be lazy. We tend to be lazy in our posture, and we tend to be lazy in the mechanics of how we move our legs. So when we're doing brisk walking, what we want to be doing is we want to be, if I just loosely draw a human here, but what we want to be doing is we want to be swinging the arms, and we want to be swinging them back and forth from the shoulder. So not from the elbow, but back and forth from the shoulder. And the same goes from the legs as well, is we want to be swinging the legs from the hip, but we also want to be lifting the knee. So we're not just casually walking, we're actually walking with some degree of purpose to it. So we are swinging the legs from the shoulders, swinging the arms from the shoulders and swinging the legs from the hips, whilst lifting the knee and maintaining an upright posture. Now, when it comes to this, is if you experience lower back pain after 1 minute of walking, then what you want to be doing is building your capacity starting at 50 seconds. So the aim is to start or to stop walking before the pain begins. So if it's 1 minute, you stop at 50 seconds. If it's 2 minutes, you stop at 1 minute 30 or 1 minute 50 or whenever it might be. Take a short break and then you begin the brisk walking again. But what you want to be building up to is sort of 10 minutes 3 times a day. So that's the kind of thing that you want to be aiming for. Now, all that's there to do is that's to lubricate the hips. So with these 3 steps in place, step 1, step 2, step 3, so you've got stretches, you've got exercises, so you've got some specific exercises, and then you've got some specific movements that you'll be doing. The first one being walking. Now, what that's doing that's giving you the best opportunity to reduce the risk of back pain in the future. Again, it's not there to eliminate, because when we're talking about lower back pain, there's all these small little movements that you'll be doing that will be adding towards lower back pain. All we can do is really focus on what are the key principles of reducing risk and then doing them as much as we can. So the things that we can do is stretch the hips, exercise and activate the hips, and then move the hips. So we would do that using these 3 stretches, so the psoas stretch, the adductor stretch, and the glute stretch. We would then use 2 exercises, so you can get those in my free download, and then you would begin a sort of a walking program, if you would call it, or a walking exercise and movement program, where you would focus on brisk walking for 10 minutes 3 times a day. So that is the basic outline of the beginnings of a lower back pain program. So again, if you want to get involved in the stretches and the exercises, go to christopherhalltraining.com, follow the link below, and download the free stretches, and then begin with the free stretches and the free exercises. Begin a brisk walking program for 10 minutes a day, 3 times. That will start you on the road. Then it's about taking it to the next level as you start building your capacity. So you'll start to then move more into an exercise program where we're building the core, we're building the hips, and we're developing your movement. And again, that will be, you'll have an opportunity to get involved in that from the follow-up videos that come with the stretches and the exercises. So hopefully that's been helpful. Hopefully it's given you a little bit more of an insight into how the stretches work and why they work, and why the 2 previous stretches don't work. So many thanks for watching. My name is Chris from Christopher Hall Training. I'll speak to you in the next video.